right now in this moment, I have my own heartbeat and my own breath. And I know that I could come home to that at any point in my day. I can connect with that. So I like to start my day in that space of gratitude, to be thankful of my breath and of my heartbeat. I don't know who gave it to me or where it necessarily comes from, but it's a gift right now in this moment. And when I start my day that way, and then I listen to music, like it's almost like it's amplified, because I had to be so keenly aware of my own heartbeat and my breath that when I actually hear music with melody and, as we think of it as entertainment, it's almost like enhanced. I'm listening to it from an enhanced perspective.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment, seeing a therapist, and going to 12-step meetings. All of those things are important, and AA saved my life. However, to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, there's a lot more to it than just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, stopping the sex addiction, or stopping any addictive behavior for that matter. To live a new life, a person needs new healthy lifestyle habits, amongst other things. Typically, this includes new eating habits, new sleeping habits, new exercise habits, new hobbies, new interests, new friends. Self-care becomes a priority, and the list goes on. Those are the types of things that we talk about here on this show. Now, what if there was a way that you could ensure that you would get out of bed feeling happy, energized, focused, and appreciative every single day? And what if there was a way that when you got off center at any point throughout the day, you could be lifted from the stressors of life and navigated back to your passion, power, and purpose? Our guest today is a musician, and his experience spans many styles and genres, from co-producing the Grammy Award-winning track 69 Freedom Special with Les Paul for Best Rock Instrumental in 2005, to providing ambient music for Shirley MacLaine. In addition, he has composed and produced music for television, film, major record labels, and top 10 recording artists. His music is being used in hospitals, hospices, cancer centers, and medical practices. He has also worked with Dave Asprey and reached the Billboard Top 10 New Age albums with New York Times best-selling authors Joe Dispenza, Dr. Daniel Amen, Neil Diamond Walsh, and Anita Moorjani. His best-selling book, The Secret Language of the Heart, has become a go-to manual for utilizing music beyond art and entertainment. It provides over 50 groundbreaking studies that assist the reader in using music to improve their health and quality of life. The title of the show today is Musical Prescriptions for Health and Well-Being, and we're going to discuss the impact of music as it relates to addiction and mental illness. Our guest today is Barry Goldstein. Barry, welcome to the show.
Tim, thanks for the great introduction, and I'm looking forward to the conversation with you.
Yeah, awesome. I saw you speak at Genius. I know you from Genius Network, and I saw you do a 10-minute talk, and there were so many things that you talked about, including the type of music we should be listening to before we go to bed, and how music can change our heartbeat or our energy or whatever it is. So we'll get to that. So I'm looking forward to this talk.
Same here. Same here. I'm looking forward to sharing with your audience as well.
And you even have some music that you might be able to play with us for us as well.
We can do that also. Yeah, maybe somewhere in the middle of it, we can take a little refreshment break and just nourish ourselves with some music for the audience.
Awesome.
And ourselves.
Awesome. And we even talked about a little bit briefly, we talked about music for your pets, music for your dog, and how you can get your dog from being crazy stressed out to calm just by playing a different type of music. So give me your background and how you came to love music, Barry.
Yeah, well, I started at a pretty young age. I was fascinated with music from the time my mom sat me down behind a piano and kind of took my fingers over specific notes and sang. And I remember thinking how cool it was that the notes stayed in the room, like they hung in the air, the sustain of the notes. And nearly 30 years after that, that became kind of my style of music that I began to produce. It was all about the space in between the notes, not just the notes we're playing, but how the vibration stays in the room and sustains. But my background was as a music producer in New York City.
Okay.
And, type A, New Yorker. And I had reached that place where I was actually working professionally as a producer. And that was always what I had wanted to do. And
so you were in New York. You grew up in New York?
I grew up in New York. Yep. Born in Queens, grew up in the Bronx. So I'm a Bronx boy.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, that career eventually became a job, and I started reaching kind of like burnout, similar to, I'm sure, a lot of people who are watching. You start off one place and you have this goal for your career. You get there, and there are times when you it's not everything that you thought it would be. So that's kind of where I was at, and what kind of led to this experiment really on myself of how can I move through burnout and reconnect with the passion of what I started out doing. That kid who was, fascinated, sitting with his mom behind that piano. How could I reconnect to that? So instead of taking 50 to 100 hours to produce a 5-minute pop song, I kind of asked myself the question, what would happen if I just allowed music to come through me, and not knowing what I'd be composing, and just, not writing anything down. What would happen if I moved to a more meditative state in the compositional process? And I knew that our hearts were at a relaxed state at approximately 60 beats per minute. And that, we could set our metronome when I was composing music to that tempo in hopes that my heart would synchronize to the tempo of music. And I would kind of slow down and move to a more meditative trance-like state. And, I didn't know that this was what I now know to be called entrainment, when we synchronize an internal rhythm, which is our heartbeat, to an external rhythm, which is the music, and how we could adapt and target our energy based on that whole concept. So I took these hour-long journey.
Now, is that evidence? Is that supported? Is there evidence that supports that? Was there evidence that supported that prior to you even knowing about it?
Yeah, I mean, we know that our hearts are at a relaxed state in most humans between 60 to 70 beats per minute. And, for many years, people have been targeting heart rates and slowing down through a lot of different ways. Even most people think about that when they work out, right? When they're working out, right? You target your heart to move to a state where you're going to be motivated. You're not going to necessarily listen to 60 beats per music when you're working out.
Right.
And in the same way, you're not going to listen to heavy metal, most people anyway, before you're going to sleep at night. Because
what if the heavy metal's at 60 beats per minute?
That would be interesting. It really depends on the person as well. It's not just a blanket thing. It's just as the best kind of medicine is individualized medicine.
Okay.
We have some general rules of thumb, but ultimately you have to like a piece of music for it to be able to really work. You have to resonate with it. So even calming music at 60 beats per minute, if you're hearing a tone within that relaxing music that for you feels like someone's scratching their nails on a board, regardless of people recommending it to you or other people having success with it, it's not going to be successful for you.
Well, and I mean, 60 beats per minute can also be 120 beats per minute, right?
Oh, not really. I mean, 60 beats per minute is 60 beats per minute. If in quarter notes.
So maybe if you go half
one, right? So if you double that time,
right,
and now you're doing 8 beats within that measure, then it would be, it would be 120 beats per minute. But yeah, you can vary, you can create, a feel of it being faster by using, based on the rhythm that you're playing with in that 60 beats per minute.
Right.
If that makes sense to you. But in general, when you're targeting a more relaxed state, my objective was to really create something that was a sonic soundscape that did not have a lot of distractions within it, that did not have a lot of detail, because that was a type of music I was producing originally, was this detailed, oriented pop music that was, layered and had a lot of different rhythms in it, and was, could get pretty complex. What would happen if we simplify that? Because the brain is constantly analyzing sound, is constantly analyzing. So sometimes the more that we have to analyze, the more we get into our analytical mind. So if we have something with a lot of melody to it, and we have something that is, has a lot of rhythm in it as well, our brain starts to analyze whether we like that or whether we don't. But if we can create something that doesn't have a lot of melody, and that was part of the recipe, that has longer tones, not a lot of repetitive melody in it, was at that tempo, and really just creates an ambiance to it. Kind of like when you light a candle in a room, you don't have to look at that candle constantly to find the benefit of it. You walk into that room and you're like, oh, it feels really peaceful in here, and that candle is a nice ambiance to it.
Yeah, right.
And I took that same concept into music. What would happen if we just created something that felt really nice when you walked into the room? You don't necessarily have to listen to every note, but you feel there's a certain tempo, a certain ebb and flow, and it really invites you to synchronize your breath and to slow down. And that's really what happened as I created these compositions that I thought nobody would listen to, Tim. Friends started using it who were massage therapists. Like, oh my God, my clients love this music because I can play it over in their sessions, and there's not a lot of melody that they remember from one session to the other. It doesn't bore me when I'm using it. I had friends who were using it in dental offices, people who were using them for their elderly parents who had dementia, people using it in hospice. And so we started getting a lot of great anecdotal evidence of how the music was being used. And that really led to a curiosity for me. Okay, great. I'm glad this is working, but why is it working? And that led to me researching and, writing a book about that called The Secret Language of the Heart: How to Use Music as a Vehicle for Healing and Transformation. So I was my own experiment, and it really worked with me to move me out of anxiety and also to allow me to wind down at night. And I just started to reconnect, with music on that same level as the initial way that it inspired me. And that happened through reconnecting in the heart.
And really, music really does play a big part in setting the tone and setting the mood in any room that you walk into, whether it's a restaurant or a yoga room. The music in a yoga class can make or break the class. I remember when I started doing spin, about 10 years ago, and it was at a place called 360, and we would spin with the music. That was the first time I'd ever learned to really spin with the music and with the beat. And typically the class would start and it'd be in the mid-high 70s beats per minute. And then it would ramp up to the 80s and then the 90s. And then some of the runs were like 110, even 120 or in the 120s, which was super fast. But then you could cut it down and go half, which was like in the 60s beats per minute. And I just remember how amped up I would get as the music would get faster. And it doesn't even really matter. Like, the words don't even really matter as much as just the music and the sounds. And And I've never really thought about the complexity of the sounds either until you mentioned it right now.
Yeah. And what's interesting though, Tim, a lot of us think about that in terms of using it for workout, that process that you just described of amping up, right? And starting
Yep.
slower and then moving that and amplifying it. But we don't always think about doing it the opposite way around. So we know that it will give us a great workout. And there's also studies show that your preferred music is going to give you a better workout than just depending on the music that's like being played in a gym, music you love. But when we look at it the other way around, what our brains are moving so fast in our day, where you in a high beta brain waves where they're moving faster. And then we're still on Facebook and we're still doing projects at night. And that's why 75 million people in this country experience insomnia as well. So I think most of us aren't taking time to go the other way around, moving from that high beta brainwave and amping down or winding down so that we're slowing our brainwaves down so that we're closer to delta, which is our sleep state where we get, our rest and rejuvenating sleep. So, maybe meeting yourself when you start that wind down process an hour before bedtime. And this is just a suggestion. I like to give people tools to use, so this would be my first tool is that if you're not winding down for bedtime to work with this protocol that I'm going to give you, which would be about an hour before bedtime, create a playlist. And it can even be 3 songs, where you start with a song that will, still be connected to your day. Maybe it is at 100 beats per minute or so. That might have some nice movement, because you don't want to just drastically like wind down. If your brain's still moving that fast, you might be excited. You want to maybe process your day as you're winding down and say, okay, well, what have been some of the challenges of my day as you're winding down and some of my successes? So you're just creating an awareness about an hour before bedtime. And then your next song go a little bit slower. And maybe at that point, it is like that music for yoga where it's stretching. There's still some light rhythm in it. And, you're doing some breathing to slow down with it. And then as you go along, the last song, and you can leave this on until you're going to sleep, is at about 60 beats per minute. And utilizing, music at that tempo or, some of the music that I've composed. There's one that I've created called Genesis, Ambiology 6 Genesis. And before I met my wife, she started using this music with her patients in her clinics. And it was found that it was one of the best, I call them acousticeuticals for sleeping challenges. So just like we have pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals, acoustics could be a low-cost, non-invasive way to wind you down at sleep. And again, you're slowing your brainwaves down, you're slowing your heart down, and now you're in a better place to get to sleep and stay asleep longer. And that's what the studies show for sleep, is that when you're using music in this way, it will, when you do it daily, it will last for a period of time. So it's not just that night, but it will help you to reprogram those circadian rhythms that were that are out of sync, and to move back into a natural rhythm, very much like Pavlov did with the dogs, teaching them to okay, here's the bell. This is going to mean when I ring the bell and feed you that this is when you'll be fed. And it's the same thing. It's kind of like when you start to play that music and slow yourself down, do that for 30 days and begin to reprogram your rhythm so that when you hear that music, you're just like, time to rest, time to relax, time to move to a more sacred space in your day where you can acknowledge your successes and your challenges of the day. So you're not waking up with the same energy again, just like you shower, you can take a sonic shower. So you're not waking up with that same energy the next morning.
It's a signal to your body. It's like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. Let's move into that space. And I mean, I'm a great sleeper. I mean, I fall asleep in less than 3 minutes. I mean, probably faster than that. Most people I fall asleep very quickly. And I know there are lots of other people out there that don't fall asleep very quickly, that maybe they have a lot of trouble falling asleep. So for anybody out there that's having trouble falling asleep, and they could be twisted up, stressed out because of the events of the day, and if they're used to doing that, or I mean, it's like there are some people that are guilty of watching shows that stress them out, TV programs that stress them out, looking at Facebook, things that stress them out prior to going to bed. I mean, that can't be good for someone's sleep. So,
yeah, and ultimately, aren't we, ultimately most of us are in those states where we're watching TV or we're still on Facebook is because we don't want to hear our inner thoughts necessarily.
right.
And so we're occupying ourselves. We had a busy day. We've been thinking the whole day, right? And you just want to like not be thinking. But music's a great way to do that and to wind down. And some of those things that you talked about, like going into a yoga class and there being specific kind of music, going to work out being specific kind of music. These are not random things that are just occurring, spontaneously. Someone's putting a lot of thought between the time that you walk in and that specific playlist is being played to target a specific state that they know is going to be beneficial to you in that yoga class. So the big difference and the big benefit comes if you can see that as that they are DJs and they are basically programming and navigating your energy for you, which is awesome. And you enjoy it, when you're there. Well, what would happen if you took that role on in your own life? And after that class or after that Anthony Robbins seminar where he played this amazing playlist,
Yeah.
Or Dr. Joe Dispenza, who plays great music at his events, what would happen if you could program your day, just like we talked about programming your night, but you could also navigate your energy so that when you have specific yearnings, that are going on in your day, that you can utilize music in the same way as you would utilize other things that might be more addictive. So that like red flag, I say, always comes up when you say, wow, I could really use a blank now, right? Whether it's a piece of chocolate or a cigarette or a drink, what would happen if you replace that with my favorite song or a song that, that is hard hitting, maybe even, if to help you move through anger. Whatever it is, it's not always just, relaxing music. It's geared towards music being a bridge. And if each person asks themselves the question, where am I now emotionally? Where do I want to go? What's my target state?
Mm-hmm.
And then taking inventory of maybe 3 songs that they can create a playlist with that might move them there. So that when they're having that yearning, it's already there waiting for them.
Yeah. Okay. So this sounds like a great idea. However, and I know like myself, I'm just going, okay, if I want to get to a calm state, if I want to get to an excited state, how do I come up with a playlist?
Yeah. Well, the easiest thing.
What's the first step for someone like me who I just don't know what kind of a playlist to create? Where do I go? How do I do it?
Well, I mean, ultimately you are, you're your own sound healer, so it's also teaching people what feels good to them. So if I listen to a song and it makes me feel expansive when I listen to it, like, wow, I love that song. It makes me feel like I'm on top of a mountain and there's unlimited energy or underneath a night sky. But if I listen to it, it makes me feel like this, right? And I feel like I'm having to cover up or I don't like that song at all. It makes me feel contracted. Then, I don't want to listen to it. And it's just like we take nourishment into our body. When you taste a piece of food and wow, I really like that. And when I eat that food, it makes me feel great. We're not really trained to do that musically. So it does take some trial and error to figure out what you like and what you don't like. But we're living in such an age of technology now, and it's so readily available that if you go to YouTube and type in playlist for relaxation, someone already has, lots of people have already created them. So and I have playlists like on Spotify that I've created for relaxation, for sleep, for the middle of your day. I call them 5-minute musical vacations. So that could be a starting point for you in terms of creating playlists. Start by listening to somebody else's who, who you respect and you consider them someone who knows what they're doing in terms of that. That would be a start. And the same thing for a relaxation, like a gratitude playlist. Like I have 3 songs on my gratitude playlist: Sly and the Family Stone, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself, Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. And then I have a relaxing piece of music. So if you just start experimenting and even pick one, I always tell people, pick your happy song. Start off with one song that makes you feel happy, and let that be your go-to song, to start utilizing music in this more aware, targeted way. Mine is The Love You Save by the Jackson 5. So like if I ask you, could you tell me what your happy song is, or one or two?
I knew you were going to ask me that because I've heard you ask that question before. I think of the what's the happy, because I'm happy.
By Bobby McFerrin.
About? Happy by.
Oh no. Yes. By oh, now I'm drawing a blank. I'm happy. Happy's the name of the song. Yeah.
Happy's the name of the song. It's upbeat. I don't know how many beats per minute, but they're obviously happy. They're smiling when they're singing. And I just think of happiness and joy. That's not the only song, but that's just what I think of when you ask the question.
Yeah. And that's really, that's really all you need to start off is one song. Because look at your state right now, even when you're talking about that song, you're already hearing it in your head. And that's what studies show, that when we're listening to a piece of music, it creates autobiographical memories. So even when we don't listen to that piece of music, but we imagine listening to that piece of music, our brain creates the same benefits, not as strongly, but still the same benefits. And your body starts to produce beneficial hormones, such as dopamine, and stops production of other stress hormones such as cortisol when we're listening to music and enjoying it. It's working with the reward centers of our brain. So that one song, it sounds kind of like, wow, can one song change my life? Yes, it actually could. Imagine just plugging that in when you were having a challenge in your day for 30 days. And even if it could just curtail anger or frustration and say, wow, things aren't that bad as I thought right now. If I could change my mood in 5 minutes, then what is that allowing you to navigate towards? Maybe it's writing a song. Maybe it's creating a business plan. Maybe it's creating more communication in a relationship. Creative energy is really not limited to just art and music. We're constantly creating our day. And if you're spending all your energy in drama, then you're not spending your energy effectively on things that can move you forward in your life. And that's really where this really can be beneficial, because that one song or that playlist or that getting up to move during lunchtime can really change your day.
So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we all want to be happy, joyous, and free. We want to spend as much time as possible in the state of feeling happy, joyous, and free. And many of us spend a lot of time in the drama zone. And so we've got this music that brings us into this drama zone, whereas we want to be, and many people, I think you may have said this, are addicted to drama. They're addicted to that lifestyle. That's what they know. And so they don't want to listen to the music that makes them feel happy, joyous, and free, which really happy, joyous, and free, that means that emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, we're in a better place. And I also think of being an alcoholic and being a drug addict, it's not just getting clean and sober, just stopping the drinking and stopping the drugs. As I say in the introduction of this show, that's the goal isn't just to stop drinking and doing drugs. The goal is to be happy, joyous, and free, which means emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally, we're in a good place, which obviously music can help us get there.
Absolutely. And, sometimes Tim, it's not always about, just being happy. Sometimes it's about moving emotions. So that's really the question that you have to ask yourself when you're doing this as well. I'm not just saying, okay, play your happy song all the time.
All the time, right?
Because sometimes you have to meet people where they're at. And that's why those 3 questions are important. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And what's going to take me there? Because it starts from the place that you want to go someplace else. You don't want to stay in the drama. But there are times when we need to move energy. And, if you're angry, sometimes you need something to bridge to get to that place of relaxation. Maybe you need to listen to a Def Leppard song, and play some heavy metal to help you move some anger. But the point is, you don't want to stay there. Use music to move the energy and get you to up level you. Oh, wow, am I in a better place than I was before I listened to it? That's a great question. And then listen to that piece of music and say, okay, cool. Wow, that felt great, man.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I actually moved some energy. Do I want to listen to another piece of music now that might allow me to move closer to that targeted state than where I started? And that's really the key. If a person wants to stay in the energy, music's a great way to just kind of jump them out and start with a piece of music that they love. Okay, well, what's a piece of music that you love? And you can kind of see what piece of music they play for you, and you can see where they're at as well, because it tells you a lot about a person and where they're at by the music that they're listening to.
Definitely. So you mentioned a gratitude playlist. What does a gratitude playlist sound like?
Well, again, like might sound different than yours.
Uh-huh.
So I picked 3 songs that I like that are about gratitude.
Okay.
And this is where it really, you can have fun in a group setting. So if you're working with people or you're with other people in the same environment, what would happen if you got 10 people in a room and you said, well, what would your gratitude playlist be? Can you tell me 3 songs that move you to a place of gratitude? And I did this in a retreat in Tuscany, Italy. What's great is a lot of the people had not heard the other people's songs.
Okay.
So they heard that song and said, wow, that was really moving. I'm going to use that in my gratitude playlist. So if you have 10 people in a room and they're each picking 3 songs, now you have a pool of 30 songs. And maybe you write them down on a whiteboard, and then people can kind of listen to them on their own in Spotify or go to YouTube, or they might have some of those songs already. So it's going to, again, be different, and that individualized musical medicine and prescriptions are going to be different for every person. It's not just going to be, okay, listen to this one, and this one.
Right. Everybody has to pick their own, which quite honestly, seems challenging to figure out. I turn on Spotify and I kind of pick. There's some stations that I listen to over and over again, just because those are the stations that I listen to that I know. But for me to go out and pick new music it doesn't seem super easy to me.
So let me take away the challenge for you.
Okay.
If you and I went to Google right now and you typed in top 10 gratitude playlists or top 10 songs for being more thankful, okay, you would probably get a vast array of links and connections to YouTube videos, to Spotify playlists. And all you have to do is what everyone does every day. They listen to 30 seconds of a song and they decide whether they think that they like it or not. So, in our days of the technology that we're in now, there's there's so little excuses because you could be there in 30 seconds and saying, don't don't like, writing them down.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you within an hour, or less, probably a half an hour, you would have a start to 3 songs that you liked. And if you continue to do that and dedicated time to it, and as you know, none of these things are really beneficial unless we move them out of random experiences and we create a program with it. What is a program? What do you, when you are talking to people who have challenges and they're staying at, at your facilities, how long is a program normally, Tim?
How long is a program? Meaning how long is a session?
How long do you recommend that like someone stay with you or go through a program that's going to start, they'll start seeing benefits?
Well, people can start seeing benefits right away. They can start seeing benefits right away. And how long the actual program is. So in our sober living homes, people typically stay with us for 3 months, 3 to 6 months, typically, sometimes longer. And then the outpatient treatment program, they're there for anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 or 16 weeks, typically.
Right. And initially, people come in and they have their, everybody has their fears and their belief systems that you have to kind of move through to kind of get them in that place where they feel there's a momentum, correct?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's really similar, so you can start seeing benefits with music right away. You can go to Google and listen to that 1 song or 2 songs. But when you start to get momentum and you start to say, oh, wow, that really worked for me today, I want to do this every day, for the next 3 months.
Well, and I think also it depends upon how open and willing someone is.
Absolutely.
I would imagine the same thing with music. Someone has to be, if they don't think it's going to work, guess what? It's not going to work. Right.
But the great thing about music is that probably you have that's not as challenging as shifting someone's belief system who's going through recovery, is most people already have an experience finding benefit with music, in their life. And they've had powerful experiences with music. So it's a really safe starting ground. And it's a great thing to use within the recovery process because it gives people their own unique sense of identity as well within that, and that they have a role where they're contributing to their recovery, within the program. So it's great at creating a program within a program to create a place of safety. People have their own playlists, that no matter what's going on, they have their music. That could be really powerful.
Absolutely. And so we talked about 60 beats per minute being a good, I guess, sound for people when they're going to sleep. What about waking up? Someone gets out of bed, what's the first thing they should be listening to? Is there a recommended beats per minute? Is there a recommended type of music? Is it recommended that because for me, I do breath work, I pray, I meditate. I'm not listening to really, well, actually, when I do breath work, I do guided breath work sessions through Othership, which is the app that I use. So there's music there and it's upbeat.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you 2 different concepts.
Okay.
Within this. So the first concept is and this is how I like to start my day and some things I recommend to people. So even before I'm thinking about external music, like music that we think of as music,
okay,
I like to go within and connect to what I call my internal music.
Mm-hmm.
So my heartbeat, my breath, my sigh out, are, for me, new ways to define music. So music's not just something that happens to me, that's controlled by other people, but music that is something that's happening in me as well. And if I could connect with that inner music, and we all have a different heartbeat, a different rhythm, a different way our breath sounds, right? Basically, we have a different vibration. We're unique, each one of us. And you can tap into your heartbeat and your breath and just inward in the morning and take a breath in through your heart and a breath out. And just feel your own heartbeat and your breath. And as soon as you close your eyes and you place your hands on your heart, you're creating something that's more sacred. And my mantra is based no matter what went on yesterday and what's going to go on today. Right now, in this moment, I have my own heartbeat and my own breath. And I know that I could come home to that at any point in my day. I can connect with that. So I like to start my day in that space of gratitude, to be thankful of my breath and of my heartbeat. I don't know who gave it to me or where it necessarily comes from, but it's a gift right now in this moment. And when I start my day that way, and then I listen to music, like it's almost like it's amplified, because I had to be so keenly aware of my own heartbeat and my breath that when I actually hear music with melody and, as we think of it as entertainment, it's almost like enhanced. I'm listening to it from an enhanced perspective. And so just like we nourish ourselves with food, and the morning is breaking the fast of not eating for 8 hours, I utilize my heartbeat and my breath to break my fast of not really be consciously, cognitively of what I'm hearing. I hear my breath and my heartbeat first. And then from there, I think about my day. Like, what does my day look like? And what would happen if you looked at your schedule and you said, wow, okay, well, this morning I have a really, I have a kind of a challenging morning. I'm going to see a loved one in the hospital, who's not doing well. And so maybe, that morning you want to listen to something that's going to make you feel like you're in your heart space and you're really giving, like a nurturing piece of music or something classical that might open your heart a little bit more. But if, the next morning you have a business meeting and you're going to be the presenter and you're talking to your board of executives and you're running the meeting and you want it to be up and inspiring, you're not going to listen to that same piece of music. So what's going to break your fast? And that morning you might say, wow, I want to listen to that happy song or a workout piece of music. So just like if you were on a diet, you wouldn't just be randomly eating your meals. You might plan them out the next day so that you don't slip off the wagon and eat a Big Mac right during lunch. Right. You're gonna kind of schedule things. So it's the same thing with music. If you can schedule that music in, or at least look at it for your next day and say, wow, this is a piece of music I'd like to start my day, at least starting your day.
Right.
And 3 times a day, morning, lunch and evening. We went through morning and evening. For if you want something that's going to shift your environment during your day, a lot of times our energy is depleted, by lunchtime. That's why we eat lunch, right? We eat lunch to replenish our energy. I like to play what I call a 5-minute vacation. So like I'm in this room a lot creating. Mm-hmm. What would happen if I could shift my environment to another place in the world and just close my eyes and feel like I'm there? So like I'll go to YouTube and type in, music from China or music from Jamaica or music from Spain.
Okay.
And I'll listen to a piece of music from another part of the world. I'll close my eyes and envision where am I? Am I by the ocean? What do the foods smell like? And really tap into that energy. And when I come back into the room, I really feel refreshed, or I get up and move during lunchtime because, dancing also is shown to improve cognitive skills and focus. So these are like 3 tools that I start with for people, because there's so many different things you can utilize music for. I can teach a full day workshop with you and teach you about drumming circles, and the science behind chanting, But I think it's, if you start with those 3 times of day and that you're the DJ of your life, programming your day, and you have the ability to shift and navigate your energy every day with music, that's just an amazing starting point.
So the recommendation is to have kind of, you know what your day looks like, and you know what type of music you're going to play at different times throughout the day. Because what I think about is I think of being proactive versus reactive. I think about, if we already know, hey, I've got a big business meeting, I want to be focused, so I'm going to play some music while I'm driving to my office that's going to help me be focused. Or I know that during the day, during the middle of the day, typically I'm going to be pretty beat down because I have just a lot going on. So maybe I want to switch it to happy, and I want to change my mood that way.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm just thinking, I've never thought about mapping out my day and playing music based upon how I want to feel.
Yeah, and again, I always use the concept of food, because again, if you're on a diet, your first 30 days are really crucial, right? You don't want to slip.
You got to
off
have
that
it.
diet.
It's got to be planned out.
Right. So you plan it out. Why do you plan it out? So you can't have any excuses not to do it. So we're trying to get the excuses out of our mind. So if you at least have a plan and say, okay, I'm going to play this, but you're not that rigid that you can't say, I don't, I'm not feeling this piece of music. Let me try something else, because you want to be able to adapt. But at least if you have a starting point, then you have the ability to navigate your energy. So that, I hate hearing people say, I had one of those days, right? And one of those days is usually takes on a negative concept, right? Well, where did that day snowball out of where your intention started? Like, you started off great. You started off with your intention, and you started off in prayer, right? And you started off connecting. Have you ever really taken inventory of your day to see when it does slip, and journal it down? Say, wow, it slipped when I had this altercation with this person who, made me feel this way, or I felt this way because of that. Well, if you brought that awareness in and said, after that event occurred, well, what I wish I had right now, right? I wish I had a piece of music that can shift me back into a closer state to where I was in the morning when I started out. So that's thinking about it that way. I'm going to plug a piece of music in there, and then, wow, after that fight, maybe it still had a charge, that argument, but it didn't take your energy away, or you didn't give it away, so that you had one of those days. So the next time someone asks you, that you can say, no, dude, I had one of those days. It was freaking awesome, right? It started off like this, and then, I had some challenges during my day, but what was cool about it was, believe it or not, I used a piece of music in the middle of my day after it started snowballing, and I felt so much better. And then I played another piece before I went to sleep at night, or when I was winding down, and I woke up with all these creative ideas, and I think I'm going to do this every day,
So now, speaking to planning out the music for your day, okay, you do events for Dr. Joe Dispenza, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I've played live music at his events, but I've also composed music for specific types of meditations that vary. Everything from walking music, which is quite different than meditation music, which is quite different than his active breathing music.
Okay. Now, when you're planning out the music for a Dr. Joe Dispenza event, is it all planned out based upon, does he give you feedback? Hey, this is what's going to be going on, this event, this prayer, this meditation, and this is the feeling that I want people to have.
Ultimately, Dr. Joe is the DJ,
Okay.
and he knows where he wants to take people, and how he wants to navigate that energy. And, one of my roles has been to provide, music that resonates with him for those specific things. I want people to, if he says, I want people to, feel like they're walking into a new future.
Okay.
You know, and I create a piece of walking music and say, well, what do you think about this?
Okay.
And then there's this back and forth, you know, between us where we say, dude, I love this. This is going to definitely get people there. But let's use another piece of music to segue it that's a little bit more taking them into a parasympathetic state where the body can relax first. You know, so there's this back and forth where he ultimately knows the energy where he wants to take people and the role, how music can magnify an experience. And then we get to watch people, you know, walking on the beach with headphones on, 1,000 people walking in Cancun,
right,
having these experiences where you can see them creating their new future to the meditation where he's guiding them with the music, you know, as well. I mean, his words and his mechanisms of getting people there through his guidance are amazing. So, you know, I love the collaboration of how music feeds off that and how he feeds off the music to get people to that state.
Right. So let's say someone says, man, I had one of those days, like off the cut. I want to hear some music from you. So someone says, I had one of those days. What are you going to play? Are you going to play happy? Are you going to play gratitude? Or do you want to just play something for me?
Oh, well, I mean, I would ask them, it's like, well, where are you now? You had one of those days. So what are you feeling right now emotionally? And where would you like to end up? You know, so that's what I would go about, how I would recommend or play something for them. You know, if it's at the end of your day and you had one of those days, you know, and you're really like, you know, tired and you just feel like you want to surrender to something else, like let somebody else decide. And I just want to hear something that's going, you know, to rejuvenate and renew and relax me. I would play something. I can even play something live if you like.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so it's going to just take me a minute to kind of switch here. And I'm just going to kind of switch cameras. So while we're doing that, though, I would invite, you know, the listeners that during this process to place their hands on their heart if they feel comfortable doing that. Close their eyes, because as soon as you close your eyes, you're slowing your brain waves down as well, and you're moving to a more receptive state. And you know, just slow your breath down and begin to breathe in and out through your heart until you hear the music, and then just surrender to it. Allow yourself to have an experience, and see where it takes you. And I'll do that for a couple of minutes for you.
Perfect. I like it. I don't think there's any way that I wouldn't calm down with that music.
Beautiful. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take long. Sometimes we just need permission, Tim, to allow ourselves, to give ourselves, to surrender to something. And just really, it's a conversation that begins with a heart. And that's why I target the heart and not necessarily targeting the brain. We give our brain so much conversation during the day, and when we slow our hearts down and we move to those more relaxed states, our brainwaves slow down with it. We can't just slow down our hearts and not slow down our thought process at the same time. So when we're moving to that state, it's not just a mental, emotional, spiritual thing that's going on. It's affecting our physical body as well. So, the heart is like the conductor of all the systems in our body. So when we're moving it to these smoother and more orderly rhythms, we're moving it to a more coherent state where the body has the ability to rest and rejuvenate and relax and move to that parasympathetic state where we're not running from the bear. And so our physical body benefits from the music. It's not subjective, it's objective. It's happening to our physical body as well. And our body in turn, starts producing beneficial hormones to ourself as well that can assist us in moving to more healing states. So it's really redefining music and how we're using it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask you today that I didn't ask?
Not that I could think of. I always like not having any talk points or preconceptions in an interview, because I think everybody, everyone's audience is different. Every person who's conducting interviews are different, and it's no fun. It's no fun being too prepared, because then you don't know, you don't want to plan it out. So I thought it was great. I thought it was a nice balance. But if there's anything else that you would like to ask, feel free. I'm more than happy to.
Okay, so last question. We talked about music for pets, specifically dogs. So how impactful can it be to play calming music, or what kind of an impact can music have on your pet, on your dog? Like, for example,
Wow.
I have an Aussie Doodle puppy. His name's Wayne. He's the cutest thing on earth. But let me tell you, he's so full of energy and so crazy sometimes. How do I get that my little bundle of joy to calm down? Can I get him to calm down with music?
Yeah, and the purpose of me creating music initially, specifically I did one for dogs and one for cats, was because for years people were telling me that their dogs and cats were like when they put their music on for themselves, that their dogs and cats would fall asleep and almost be like in meditative states while they were meditating as well. So this is kind of a longer story, but when we were bringing our dog home, my wife Denise, who you've had on the show, Dr. Denise Wharton, she found our dog, or our dog found her on a television interview, and literally he was part of the ASPCA for Yavapai Humane Society. And they had him on the same show that she was on. And after she walked off the stage, he licked the back of her leg. And, she fell in love. She said, he's like you in dog form, Barry. He has like big brown eyes and a red nose. It's like, wow, thanks, honey. So I said, well, he's such a cute dog. Let's wait to see if I'm sure someone else is going to adopt him, because we lived in a smaller condo at the time in Scottsdale, and we both traveled a lot. Long story short, we end up going to see Woody 2 weeks later at the Yavapai Humane Society. And in the meantime, I had started to compose music for him specifically. I knew that he was going to be coming into our household, and I kind of just tapped into what I felt his energy would be, and also what was relaxing me thinking about bringing him into our home. And we ended up bringing him home, and we played the music for him. Now, this is a rescue dog who has been in and out of kennels for a year and a half. And when we played him the music, I actually have a video of it. He went belly up within 20 seconds of playing the song, like in a yoga pose. Like we had no idea he was going to do this, which is a trust position. So that was an amazing thing to see him responding to that. And he had some anxiety issues and abandonment issues initially when we left the house. So the idea was we would play the music for him, so we would bond with him, and he began to associate the music with our feelings of loving him. And we'd love on him and play this music. And when we left the house, he stopped the crying because he began to associate the music with being loved. And so it could have a really, really big impact on animals. And then I began to send them to kennels. And we started to get responses of it really helping, relaxing the dogs and actually the cats as well in kennels. So they're doing more and more research on how music can be beneficial for animals. I mean, they're using specific music for producing more milk in cows, and they're showing studies that when you play certain types of music, that cows respond more to classical music than they do to like punk rock, and they're showing this through productivity. So it's a virtually new field, but my goal wasn't so much to just play music for your pet and have them relax. Some of the other research by HeartMath Institute showed that when we walk into a room and we are in a space of showing our pets nurturing emotions, elevated emotions like gratitude, kindness, compassion, that their heart rate variability and ours synchronize together. They move to a place where it's more coherent. And when we stop and we move out of those relaxed states, the same thing. So pets are very intuitive. They pick up on our energy. So my goal was, hey, if we could relax, so if Tim could relax, right, and love on his high energy dog while he's relaxing, would that have an effect on them together as a bonding experience together? And that's really the goal of the series, Pet Waves, which I showed you kind of before. That's my dog Woody.
Yeah, love it.
And his legacy, is he was the first one to actually benefit from it. So yeah, we can benefit, and so can our pets.
Love it. How can people find you, Barry, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your music? Where can they go? How can they find you?
Well, I am very difficult to find. BarryGoldsteinMusic.com. You can also, find my music on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and also my book, The Secret Language of the Heart, is also on Amazon as well. If you're interested in delving, more into how you can use music as a tool for healing and transformation, definitely check my book out and become part of my community as well. Go to my website. When you join my newsletter, you actually get 3 free pieces of music. So that's a great starting point to kind of seeing what I'm doing and events, workshops that I'm putting on.
Awesome. Barry, thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate you. I got a lot out of this conversation, and I'm sure our guests did as well. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week.
All right, Tim, thank you for the amazing work that you're doing in the world as well. I greatly appreciate it.